Okay, we are here at Picnic 2011 in Amsterdam. We are the data cooks, and we are here to make data visualizations popular. We want that everyone can make their own data visualizations like they make food nowadays. So, interesting guests will join and cook something out of the data we have. Frank Pressin is here to cook some data. And could you tell us a bit? You live in Amsterdam, right?
I don't live in Amsterdam. I live in Utrecht, which is a city nearby. I've lived in Amsterdam for 12 years though, and I've been working in Amsterdam now again for 6 years, so I know it pretty well.
Okay, and what kind of things would you want to understand about Amsterdam and visualize about Amsterdam?
Well, I think Amsterdam is a very dynamic city, and what you see is that there are certain places, hotspots, you must have them in every city, that the local government takes great pride in to develop and to put money, to put creativity, to entice people to come there and work there and live there. And one of those places is called Amsterdam North, and we're standing there right now.
So it's this place, yeah.
It's this place, and I'm very curious if this actually reflects, all this attention actually reflects into something that you can see in the data. And because there are some data sets that are historical for the last few years, I'm very curious if you see any change, any desired change, and maybe even if that is the effect of these policy measures.
That sounds really interesting. So let's go and see what kind of data we have to use for that. So,
I'm very curious.
Yeah.
Manipulate it, 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 the way we want it. Manipulate it, manipulate it, manipulate it.
Welcome to the data session, and we're going to look through here of some of the data. You asked outside. You asked some data about the northern part of Amsterdam.
Yeah.
And I have here a collection of statistics. We have it down to the neighborhood level. It's very specific from Amsterdam. Good statistics for births, population, unemployment, businesses, income statistics, education statistics, building statistics, all kinds of stuff. I picked out some stuff that could be interesting. This is education from different areas, and we have the north area, even divided to sub areas, and we have very specific numbers on how many people from which education class live there. And we can see it also by a time series, so we can see how it has progressed by year. So what do you think? Could you get something out of this kind of data? Do you have a vision of what you could make out of it?
Yeah, well, I think that if you see something as a creative hotspot, then it's very important that it doesn't only apply to the people in the stars, in a sense, but there's also some spin-off for the people who actually live there and work there and go to school there. So what I hope to see is that all this attention for the northern part of Amsterdam also turns out in some real added benefit for the people who are there to stay.
What could this added benefit be? Could it be more income or happiness, or what kind of indicator would you like to search from here?
Better education, better income, better longer stay, for example.
Yes.
Those are the things that I think about.
All right. I think we can find some data for this, certainly.
Yeah.
Okay.
And about the creative hotspot, how do you think, what numbers would define a creative hotspot? Or is it just something that people know that place is a creative hotspot? Or do you think it is even possible to see it in numbers?
I think it's possible to see in numbers. The number of startup companies, for example, the closeness of companies that we would consider creative. Like, for example, we have MTV just around the corner here. There are a lot of the presence of artists, I think, is very important. The number of cultural events that is going somewhere, it's also very interesting. The number of people coming there. So there's lots of ways that you can define a creative hotspot with.
Yeah, that sounds really interesting. So now the next thing would be to try to put this on paper somehow.
Yeah.
So we have we have an empty paper here. So
Yeah.
what should we do? What should we visualize?
Well, what would of course be nice when you visualize is that there's this there's Amsterdam, and there's this northern part of Amsterdam, and some of it is considered a hotspot. You could say it here. Here's the central station. Here we are now. This is the hotspot. What is happening here and there at several places is that large firms moved out and there came space for new small companies. So you have, for example, like I said, MTV, but also very, very small companies of 1 or 2 or 3 people who actually are very creative and part of the creative industry. Then there are a lot of people who actually live there. And there are streets and houses and cars, and so the whole infrastructure of people. The northern part of Amsterdam used to be considered as something where you didn't want to live and didn't want to stay. So it would be nice to both visualize what's happening here. Like I say, how many companies are there? What is their spin-off? Are they related? And what is happening at the house prices? Happening for how long people stay here? Happening at their educational levels? And maybe you could overlap that in a kind of a time series. So you can see some actual changes going on for the last 4 or 5 years.
Yeah. How does this sound to you?
Certainly we can find some kind of way to generate a heat map out of it, or trying to put numbers on a map and in a time series, so we have several pictures out of it.
Yeah, what would be wonderful if you could visualize it. So it's not just these figures, but if there's some way to make these figures tangible. And I guess visualizers like you know best how to do that.
Yes, hopefully.
So, I mean, but yeah, it's like, well, I mean,
What we got here is that we dug up some data from Statistics Amsterdam and the city of Amsterdam, and we have a couple of time series combined here. We have how many people have moved in, how many people have moved out, how much the total population has been for this particular area, Amsterdam North, and how many businesses have been started for this period,
Yes.
and how many businesses there's total, and how large the employment is at this area.
Okay.
And this is pretty statistical data, so we saw that the line chart would be kind of best described for this data, and we made 2. We have the work situation here on the top, and here you can see that there's a growing trend upwards. That from 2005 to 2010, there's been a certain upward trend in the amount of businesses and the amount of employment on the area, while as the population actually has gone a little bit down.
Yeah,
So some people have moved out, but the business has been thriving here. And new companies, there was a really big surge from 2006. There's a lot of new companies created, and all the time, big number. But apparently the recession hit quite badly this area,
Yeah.
and unfortunately you can see in the statistics that it's really gone down.
Yeah, but this is still not, it is 100, not 0. So still here it's about 75.
The numbers here are actually indexed, so we're
Okay.
indexed from 2006 is 100,
Okay.
and then we're indexing from there. The actual numbers, you can see that it's the new created businesses are gone down from 640 to around a bit under 500.
Exactly.
So about 20% drop.
Yeah. I think it's very interesting to see that there is this correlation indeed that you might expect, but it really is happening. And that you also see is, although there's a lot of investment in the area probably, that it's not immune to supranational influences like the big crisis that really hit. And I think it's very insightful to see it correlated like this. And what would be nice, of course, if you could correlate this now, for example, with a city in Helsinki, in Finland. Actually, to make it far more useful, and to see if this is a trend that is typical for a hotspot or not.
Yeah.
We might have some more information on other boroughs and then compare it. And of course, you could do this inside of Amsterdam to be sure you could do it with all the boroughs, or at least want to try if this is any good. And then it would be most interesting to compare it to Helsinki as well, because you had the same crisis.
Yeah.
And also hotspots.
Yeah. I think it, especially when we have the financial crisis here, we
Yeah.
can see that it hits neighborhood, but now we don't see if a similar thing happens in Helsinki or some other area in Amsterdam. So I think it definitely would make this visualization better.
Yeah, it would also add to this idea that by designating it as a hotspot, this really has some influence on the people and the businesses. Because now it could be just a general trend, in a sense, which I don't expect to be. What is very nice here is that this MTV studio opened. That really you could interpret it as the spark of this whole increase in new businesses that open here.
Yeah.
And that is a steady trend.
Do you think this correlates to what you know about this neighborhood and how things have gone? So that first new companies are
starting to form from 2007. It really increases.
Yeah.
And of course there have been always a few total businesses. As I'm not a statistician, I don't know. It's hard to see if this is much or little. I mean, you really have to compare that. But you see a definite increase by looking at it this way. Yeah. And what this is again, this employment and people moving in and out. This is of course an interesting indicator, but also their level of education would be interesting to see.
Yeah. If there's a change in. Yeah. And a lot of people are moving in, but we don't know so much about what kind of people are moving in. That would be really interesting.
That would be interesting. Yeah, sure. Yeah. And what you can see is that although people stay getting out, in general, the amount of people going out is less and less each year. So this is also going down.
Yeah.
And this is a good trend, probably.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Thank you very much.